7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
All right, and welcome back to the Vegas Squares podcast. This is the first show after what feels like a lifetime, but it was only a 3-month hiatus. It seems like it's going to be a longer hiatus for half the crew, as they decided they did not want to show up today to our comeback show. And I'm clearly still on hiatus because I didn't even do a sound check. I didn't even do a sound check before I just turned on the mics. Mine was good, so that's all that really matters most times. Oh, there he is.
Oh, good.
Spike, welcome back, sir.
Oh, it's good to be back.
I would ask how you're doing, but you probably still don't give a shit. So.
No, well, I care about me. I am my own favorite
Fucking
topic of conversation.
Selfish douche.
But I figure the listeners don't care.
For a guy
about
who's
us.
wearing a Patrice Bergeron, one of the most selfless guys in hockey, you're a pretty selfish asshole.
Very true.
Okay. So, Token Tony and Fake Token are both AWOL today. Actually, I know Token Tony had to work the morning shift at the casino, which is a shift I don't ever want to see.
Yeah, that sounds brutal.
I call that the oxygen tank shift.
Especially
that's most of the people you see.
Yeah, especially in a poker room. That's going to be the most boring, miserable shift on the planet because everybody's old and cranky. They're not going to have any fun whatsoever. You're going to get called over for the most mundane shit. It just seems miserable.
You know, I will say this. One of the lines I used to say as a person who worked in a casino who made decisions about, player disputes was whenever there was a dispute over something very trivial or very, childish, I used to look that person square in the eye and say, you know you have to be 21 to play in here, right? So and then when they say that, they kind of look at you like, what? And I'm like, yeah, mentally you still have to be 21 as well. Sometimes, that doesn't happen either. But anyways, Tony Johnson, he'll be around. I know he can't wait to join us this year in the NFL contest that we have outlined. We spent a whole day kind of coming up with a better system than we had last year. Last year, I think we just made shit up on the fly.
Oh, absolutely we did, especially because we changed the rules around week 12 or 13.
And we added bold predictions.
Oh, yeah. We added the random pick generator.
Which actually stuck.
Yeah.
We won't go into it now. When the four of us are here more closer to the NFL season, we will, of course, give you the details in our season-long contest, which are actually posted on Twitter and in the pinned tweet.
It's 3 contests this year, though. It's not just the one. It's 3.
Well, we do, but are we going to actually keep updates on the podcast for all 3 contests?
I think for 2 of them, at the very least, we can at least give very quick updates to see where everybody is. Well, one of them is going to be if we're only checking every other week or every third week.
The run-it-up?
Yeah.
The run-it-up will be fun. I'll explain the run-it-up here because that one we probably won't explain or be keeping tabs on week to week, and except for maybe on Twitter, we'll post 4, because there's 4 of us in the bet. Actually, there's 5 of us.
Yeah.
Somebody who's not on the podcast, but we'll post 5 pictures of everyone's run-it-up bet. Basically, the thesis is as follows, that all 5 of us are signing up an MGM account, MGM Sports, which is one that none of us had, ironically. I mean, of the more popular sports books apps, none of us had MGM, which works out because that way we can use a sports book that we don't use with our other degenerate gambling issues, like William Hill and Caesars sports books. And I know Tony likes to look at the offshores as well. But this one, you take $50. You start. I guess we're starting now because you already made a preseason bet, right?
Yeah, a couple of them. So you should be happy about that because I
did they not go well? Perfect. I gotta say, I inadvertently, when we texted, you talked about the Jets -3. I inadvertently faded you because I'd already bet the Giants, but I took the Colts under that you had given me. And it looked good until that last stupid field goal with 2 minutes left.
Yeah, that was
That
rough.
pushed it over. But anyways, so you take the $50. You have, I guess, starting now, theoretically, or when the first preseason games kicked off, you can bet any American football sport, North American football.
Yeah, Canadians allowed as well.
So Canadian football, college football, NFL. That's it, right?
I think we said arena was okay too.
Oh, arena football.
But I don't know when the actual
I want to
season
bet
is.
Alliance of American Football. Is that coming back? No, it's not coming back.
XFL next year.
XFL next year. Our contest is our contest going that long?
Oh no, probably
Just to the Super. I don't know.
Oh
when
no,
the-
that's
I don't know
in
when
the
the
spring,
XFL,
isn't it?
When is? I don't. Yeah, I guess I'm not. I don't think it competes with NFL like it
Yeah.
did the first time. Anyways, so you have the $50. The goal is to at the end by what Super Bowl? What Super Bowl are we on right now? 53.
This will be 54, I think.
So at the end of Super Bowl 54, whoever has the highest dollar amount in balance in the account is the winner and wins $50 from each of the other 4 contestants. So my initial thought, and I don't think I'll end up doing this because I'm too much of a degenerate, was just to put the 50 in and leave it. And let you guys just degen off.
And given the way the season has started for me, that probably would have been the right strategy to go with.
And I mean partial disrespect when I say this. I'm not worried about token. I feel like you can degen it off pretty well, but I feel like token might be done by week 1.
Yeah.
I think he might degen off preseason.
Yeah, that is the thing.
If I kept it at 50 and didn't make any bets.
He's willing, because when he degens, he'll go whole hog and
Yeah.
drain the account on a game where he's super confident. My bets have been for $2 and $3 so far, so it's not huge. But I've also got some futures in there, which, we can talk strategy if we want, but now I'm starting to think that the future bets aren't great just because they're locking up money for the entire season.
Sure.
And now I can't touch that money. So I'm already down. I've lost 20% of my account based on bets lost and futures bets that are already locked up.
Speaking of bets, one of my favorite futures bets that I have going is actually not available on any sports book, and it is tokens deposits from week 1 until the Super Bowl. The total is 9.5. I have the over.
Whoa!
Yeah, for $20 with tokens. And 9.5. I get to check his William Hill account. Okay. Actually, I should check all his accounts now because he's got a few that he can deposit to. But where are we? I'm going down a rabbit hole here.
Yeah.
Point being is
I'm
at the
excited
end,
about this one.
February. I don't know what day the Super Bowl is, but
February 2nd.
February 2nd. So the end of the Super Bowl on February 2nd. We will all show our account balance, and whoever has the highest, whether it means that you were betting away or you literally stood pat on 50, whoever has the highest will win basically $200.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. We won't be keeping tabs on that on the podcast. We may talk about it here and there, but I'll try every week to every other week to post our account balance screenshots on a tweet. So on the Vegas Squares, which you can follow us at Vegas Squares if you don't already. And I didn't thank any of the sponsors because I'm figuring, you know what? I haven't communicated with the sponsors in 3 months, so let's just put it this way. We don't have any sponsors anymore except for 12 Ounce Sports Radio because as far as I'm concerned, they don't pay us, so we're done promoting. I don't even think one of them's in business anymore.
Oh, really?
The Pop Sockets.
Oh, right, yeah. I actually looked for them on Etsy or whatever it was, and the page was down.
How'd that go?
This was like 6 months ago.
Yeah, fair enough. But speaking of down, right, let's get into some sports talk.
All right.
And, when he was with the Steelers, I didn't like him specifically because he was a Steeler. Nothing personally against him. But the more and more as days go by, I just don't understand Antonio Brown's motive for life. And somebody put this so perfectly the other day, and maybe you can elaborate on it or disagree with it if you want, but he just can't get out of his own way.
Yeah, and this is the thing, these guys, all professional athletes in every sport, especially the elite athletes, have been so coddled and so spoiled throughout their entire lives that they feel that they need to be able to do everything they want to do and either not face consequences for it or they should be given special exemptions from rules for it or whatever the case may be. And so for Antonio Brown, If you've been living under a rock and haven't heard, Antonio Brown is now threatening to quit the game of football because he doesn't like the new helmets that the league has authorized.
Or being kind of forced for them to wear.
Yeah, because they're supposed to be safer, but Antonio Brown says that it blocks some of his field of vision, some of his peripheral vision, so he can't see the ball as well. And because of this, he won't play football unless he's allowed to wear his old helmet, which apparently he got from the Steelers. He painted to sort of resemble a Raiders helmet, brought it to practice.
I did not hear that.
And he would be allowed to wear it at practice, but he's not going to be allowed to wear it to games. So we're in a quandary here. So this is the sort of thing where, it's just he wants an exemption to the rule because he feels that he is either above the rules or that they don't apply to him or whatever the case may be. And it's just, I wonder when they say that the new helmets are so much safer than the old ones, why they couldn't do something like in the NHL where they grandfathered in players who were playing before the visor rule came into effect.
Yeah.
That you don't
or
have
even
to
the
wear
helmet
visor.
rule.
The helmet rules. These sorts
they
of
stopped.
things.
God, the last guy to not wear a helmet, I think, was like mid-90s.
Yeah, well, it was Ali Afridi, and he stuck in the league for, I don't know. Yeah, he stuck in the league longer than anybody anticipated.
Especially who put that rule into place.
Yeah.
But actually, you kind of touched on that with the grandfathering in thing. That's the first thing that came to my mind. It's like, hey, look, I understand the NFL has been a target for a negative target, basically, with the CTE, the concussions, what happened with Junior Seau, et cetera, can go on and go on and go on. It's one of the darker black eyes to the game. But I kind of agree with the situation, kind of a la the NHL did. Maybe either in a grandfathering process or a waiver exemption. Hey, look, if Antonio Brown and or any other person who feels like this technology, aka the helmet, that is considered outdated, better suits them, then maybe there is a waiver or a contract or a clause that says if you develop CTE, brain damage, any of this shit, you're on your own.
Yeah. And,
And you're not going to be able to sue us. You're not going to be able to go write a book, tell all about how the NFL screwed me. I mean, I don't know. My point being is that I believe in a situation where it's kind of like life. Unless I am hurting someone that is not myself. I had an argument with a buddy the other day about seatbelt laws. Now,
Okay.
he believes that, and he almost kind of convinced me. I would say I'm still kind of on the fence about it. But he believes that, I shouldn't have to wear a seatbelt. And I shouldn't be pulled over and given a ticket for that. Because if theoretically I'm in a crash and I'm thrown from the vehicle and killed, I'm not hurting anybody but myself in that spot. Now, I disagreed for a number of reasons. However, ultimately I still stat basically like, I can see your point. But maybe he has a point in this situation. Hey, if you want to do this, the only person you're hurting is yourself in this point.
Sure. And
according to research.
Yeah, and that's sort of the thing where, it is true, but it isn't, because the league wants to make the league more safe, and especially with the black eye they've gotten about CTE, about all of the head injuries, and about the fact that they seemingly don't give a shit about player safety whatsoever.
Okay.
They're trying to make the game more safe, and he's saying no. And it's one of the superstars, it's one of the faces of the league saying, I won't do this.
Now, if they took an anonymous poll of players, helmets are kind of arbitrary, I think, for most people, like offensive linemen and defensive linemen and guys like that. But, I mean, if there was a situation like this, like they took, everybody who doesn't play hockey in the NHL is like, we want to see fighting out of hockey. But anonymous surveys continue to come back time and time again for NHL players. They want it.
Yeah.
If there was something along the lines of, hey, this helmet will be heavier or, decrease your peripheral vision, but it's safer, do you want it? And surveys, again, anonymously, because I'm sure people not named Antonio Brown would want to come out and say, yeah, we want the game safer, we want the game safer. But maybe if anonymously they could vote, do you think that they would come out and say, hey, look, we want the old style?
I honestly don't know. That's a very interesting question.
Because at the end of the day, it's not me. If I'm sitting here campaigning for safety in the NFL, I'm not the one playing. It's the people who are playing the NFL. And this all really started from retired players.
Sure, and it's the retired players that know how bad the game was, especially way
I'm
back
not saying
in the
they're
day.
wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I don't disagree with them. I sit basically on the fence. I will maintain this belief, and I don't know if anything will change it. This is the career path you went down. You chose to go down. It's a very lucrative career, but it is also a very high-risk, high-reward career.
Sure, and remember, too, that a lot of the guys that are retired, and especially the ones that are have serious brain issues, these guys were playing in the 70s and 80s.
Didn't make a ton of money.
Where they weren't making a ton of money. The helmets were basically cheap plastic, and they were playing on painted concrete rather than whatever turf and softer surfaces they have now. So, these guys were screwed from the start. The newer players, they're getting better protection. It's still not perfect. I don't know that it's ever going to be perfect.
I don't know if you can ever perfect the safety in this game.
So, these are the kinds of things that they have to really look at. But if they have a helmet that makes a player safer and the league is saying that this has to be worn, Antonio Brown had a chance to be a leader here and say, yes, we are going to wear this. This is going to be better for the league, better for the players. This is what we're going to do. And instead he turned around and said, nah, and he kind of wanted to do his own thing. Which,
in fairness, yes, he said no, and, he's not really being at the forefront of safety concerns. But it wasn't like he was like, no, I'll wear my helmet and there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it. It was, no, I'll give up football if you won't do it. I think ultimately this is an empty threat. But maybe he could be onto something greater for a situation where there's most wide receivers don't like to wear knee pads. I think that's another big issue with knee injuries.
Yeah.
A knee pad theoretically doesn't do much, but maybe there's something that can be developed with the technology that cuts down on knee injuries. But wide receivers are notorious for not wearing even the basic knee pad. He could say, you're right, he could say, hey, look, I don't believe in this, but I believe that safety is an issue. Maybe there's something we can do. Because if it really cuts down your peripheral vision, maybe is this part of the helmet where your eyes are, if you cut it back a little bit, is that part of the crucial safety to your head? I don't know. I don't know what this helmet even looks like, the new helmet. Because I know
no idea.
I know there's 6 different styles. I feel like Peyton Manning wore one. Brady wore a different one. I mean, I don't know how I honestly haven't really studied helmet development over the last decade.
Yeah. Just make sure that if you do...
I remember Wes Welker had a big fucking globe on his head after his concussions with Denver.
Just make sure that you put... safe results only on Google, because helmet is especially a British slang for the tip of the penis.
I thought that was pretty American slang too.
Yeah, well, it is, but the British will say helmet or bell end, so you got to make sure.
So I shouldn't type in fat helmets.
Yeah,
or
helmet pics. Yeah,
pink helmets. Yeah. My favorite was. Did you ever see the 40-year-old virgin?
Oh yeah.
When he said the purple-headed yogurt slinger. That's just disgusting, but hilarious.
Yes. I screwed up when I said Al Iafrate was the last player to not wear a helmet in the NHL. It was Craig McTavish. I don't know how I got those two confused, but it was. I had to double-check, because after I said it, it sounded wrong. It was Craig
All them
McTavish.
Hockey players look alike.
Yeah.
So you have the helmet issue. The frostbitten foot is what really kind of threw me off, because first of all, he had an Instagram of a picture of his feet, and they were just fucked up.
Yeah.
And I thought he was just showing, hey, look, I trained so hard, my feet get so fucked up. But I didn't realize, a day later, he frostbitten feet.
Yeah, that's significantly scarier, especially if you're a Raiders fan. You have to start wondering, what the fuck did we just give up for this guy?
But the thing is, it wasn't like this just came out of nowhere. This has been a 2-year process when he was in Pittsburgh.
That I didn't know.
Not the frostbitten feet. I'm just saying the antics.
Oh, yeah.
The antics. I mean, look at Week 17 last year. This team is in a playoff push, and he quit. He didn't show up for 2 practices and got benched. I mean, you hate to say you told you so, but I mean, the thing is I think at the end of the day, and I have to look this up, so I don't want to be completely wrong, but I think at the end of the day, they gave up, a third and a fourth for Antonio Brown? So it is low risk, high reward?
I knew it was a couple of picks. I couldn't remember where they were.
I'll have to see. I'm trying to get the actual trade to Raiders and see what that was given up, but it wasn't much. They didn't give up a first round pick, I know, which was kind of the surprise. But
yeah, the question that everybody asked is how come our team couldn't give up that to get Antonio Brown?
And maybe you're sitting here thinking now with the frostbitten feet and the basically I think an empty threat, the showing up to camp in a hot air balloon. I mean, the guy's just one thing after another. It's just I don't know. Part of me thinks, because we talked about this, I think when the rumors came out, like, oh, would you want him in a Patriots uniform? And I said overwhelmingly no.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you took some shit for that, too, because most people would have said yes, just because this is a league where no matter what you do, no matter how batshit you are, people are going to want you on your team.
Yeah, if you can play ball. And there's no doubt about it that he can absolutely play ball.
Yeah. So,
third and a fifth, yeah.
Third and a fifth, okay.
So basically a third and a fifth in the NFL draft, which I don't know what the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted out of that, and we'll see what those two picks become, but I don't think either of those two picks, as of right now, are a better player than Antonio Brown, which is, an easy call because there's not many players better than Antonio Brown right now.
Sure.
So my question, just theoretically while we're talking about this, because it just came into my head, over under 14 games for Antonio Brown play in a Raider uniform this season.
Over under 14 games.
Whether it's injury or idiocracy. I don't know if that's a word, but
that's a good movie. I'll go under.
You think he's going to play less?
Yeah, and I think part of it is going to be he sits out because of the helmet issue. Part of it's going to be his antics don't sit well with Gruden and he gets benched, and I think he's going to probably play about half the year.
God, 8 years in the league. 9 years in the league. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 9 years in the league. 11,000 yards and 75 touchdowns. He's amazing. He's absolutely amazing.
Oh, yeah. And he's, 31, I think?
Something like that.
So he's still got a few good years left in him, you would assume, anyway.
It's true. A sixth-round pick, 195th. But, yeah, it just seems... Again, and... I've started to realize something this time to time in my life, like no matter what, and this is not just sports, but just in life, like no matter what you think about one person, the way that they're doing their thing, whether you think the way that they're living their life is right or wrong, at the end of the day, they're the only ones that have to look back on their life with regret or admiration. And Antonio Brown at some point may look on this with regret, but if he doesn't, that's his decision. He's still probably going to go down as one of the greatest wide receivers of all time, even if his career ended today.
Yeah. He's, we said 9 years in the league?
He's been in the league 9 years with 11,000.
Yep. And
I would imagine he'd be a Hall of Famer.
7-time Pro Bowler.
And he has 7 years of 1,000 yards or more.
Yeah, that's got to be...
7-time Pro Bowl, four-time All-Pro first team. Led the NFL in receiving and receptions in 2014 and 2017. Led the NFL in touchdowns in 14 and 18. So, that's just in the NFL. He's also got 5 return touchdowns as well.
Wow. Yeah.
I think he'd be a Hall of Famer at this point.
I think he's going to get in there based just on that. Now, if he goes longer and he has, 4 or 5 mediocre years to end his career, I think that diminishes some of his accomplishments. Probably still gets
maybe
in.
Diminishes a first ballot kind of thing. But yeah, if he takes 5 mediocre years but still ends up with 13 or 14,000 yards, he's probably still in pretty firmly entrenched in there. So the Raiders are on Hard Knocks, so he kind of almost fits just exactly what they need for that.
It's got to be great ratings for HBO right now.
Do you have HBO? Do you watch Hard Knocks? I've never seen a single episode in all of their.
I have HBO,
seasons.
And I am like you. I have not watched a single episode.
It just doesn't interest me. Like as much as I love football, just I don't know if it's. I just don't want to see it. It's like preseason football to me. If it's on or around and I have nothing to do, I'll watch it. But I'm not dying to see it. I'm not dying to know the storylines. And I feel like the minute it ends, or even while it's even being aired, it's being tweeted anyway. So
Yeah,
if I'm paying attention to Twitter, I can know.
And, some of that, and I'll disagree with you a little bit about the preseason football just because there's always a chance for wacky shit. Like, I don't know if you saw the penalty call where the Chargers got hit with 4 penalties, all on them on a single kickoff. And it was Ed Hockley's kid, so leave it to him to take fucking 10 minutes to explain the penalties. It was holding, penalties decline, holding, penalties decline, holding, penalties decline, and then I really thought he was going to say somehow not holding, and it was like unsportsmanlike conduct.
Somehow not holding.
And it was, but yeah, he just went through the entire thing and had to show all of the, or say all of the ones. But yeah, I mean the Hard Knocks thing, it just. I usually like behind-the-scenes type shows, too, but, unless they're doing it about the Patriots, I don't give a shit what's going on. They did Houston before, they've done Cleveland, they've
Tampa,
done Oakland. None of these teams, interest me because, A, I'm not a fan of the teams, and B, I don't think any of those teams have had a realistic shot to win anything at the beginning of the season either.
And it's funny because I think they did Cleveland probably would have been more interesting this year with Odell.
Oh, definitely.
And Baker and the Duke Johnson who just got traded, maybe his storyline in the locker room. But yeah, so they have. Has it really been going on for 12 years?
Has it really? Holy shit.
Chiefs in 07. Chiefs, Cowboys, Bengals, Jets twice, Miami, Cincinnati, Atlanta, Houston, Rams, Bucks, Browns, Raiders.
Yeah.
And then they did Dallas in 2002. I guess they decided to stop after that.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, they have Dallas 2002 and then Chiefs 2007, so it looks like they stopped for 5 years.
Huh.
Some of the issues covered in Hard Knocks in the 2002 Cowboys season include, if you had to guess.
I don't even know who was playing for the Cowboys in 2002.
How rookie wide receiver Roy Williams will adjust to professional football.
Oh, boy.
It didn't go well for him.
No, it did not.
Quincy Carter and the pressure to stay consistently the starting quarterback with the addition of Chad Hutchinson. Who the fuck is that? I don't even remember that.
This was Parcells Cowboys, right? In 2002?
No, the next one, Dave Campo heading to his third and eventually final season as Dallas' head coach.
Okay. I couldn't remember when Tuna took over.
And then Emmitt Smith beginning his final season in Dallas, 2002.
Wow.
I thought he was gone way before that. It's just kind of funny to think, 2002, watching the NFL, you forget these guys, like Quincy Carter. I remember the name, but he wasn't very worthy of being, something. I guess back then it was a storyline.
He stuck around for a couple of years, though.
Yeah. It's funny looking through these. Kansas City, 07. Priest Holmes returning to football after a 2006 career-threatening neck injury.
Oof.
And star running back Larry Johnson's contract holdout. Jeez. It's just funny to think about who and what was going on back then. Because basically, the first season in 2002, all the way to now, I think one consistent figure in the NFL is Tom Brady. That's about it.
Yeah.
I mean, is there anybody who you could say could theoretically be in all of these seasons of Hard Knocks other than him? No.
Adam Vinatieri.
Yeah, fair enough. There's probably one more we're not thinking of. But
yeah, I'm sure there's another old fart out there. Sebastian Janikowski. Oh, no, he left.
Is he gone? I don't know. Is he gone?
I think he retired, didn't he?
I don't know. He was with Seattle last year, but I don't think he still is. Anyways, but that's just crazy to look at all this from time to time. But speaking of Brady, this is a weird contract. I've been trying to wrap my head around what it means because basically the media is trying to tell me that Brady and the Patriots are in a contract dispute and Brady's going to end his career somewhere else. And if you ask Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, you get the same non-answer. You'll deal with that, when it comes. But I just, you look at it two ways. I can't see Brady finishing his career with anybody else because of what he's done with the salary cap, with his contract, for his teammates, for his team, for so long. But then you have Peyton Manning, who you probably thought that would never happen either in Indianapolis. Now that's granted, that's a large neck injury. Andrew Luck was there, really a can't miss prospect.
Right. And
I mean, next year Tua Tagovailoa. Not that they're going to finish high enough to fucking get that draft pick, but I mean,
No.
is there a quarterback coming out? I mean, if Trevor Lawrence was coming out and Bill Belichick liked him, I don't know, maybe, but I don't think there's a quarterback coming out quite like Andrew Luck in this spot.
No, and the Andrew Luck thing was different, just because they had Andrew Luck, but they missed an entire season, or Manning missed an entire season.
They tanked that season to get him.
Yeah, they went 1-15.
Not quite that. But I think they went whatever. They got the first pick. Yeah.
Suck for luck.
Yeah,
I mean, I remember that.
That was the slogan.
But the flip side of that was, if they had kept Manning on the roster, he was due an insane roster bonus. Mm-hmm. So in order to make room for Andrew Luck and others so that they could pay them, they had to get rid of Peyton Manning.
Right.
Brady keeps his contract number down to the point where they don't necessarily get stuck in a quagmire like that, where even if they have a prospect that they want to keep on the roster, they don't have to get rid of Brady in order to make room for this guy, which we've seen when they've hung on to Ryan Mallett and Matt Castle and the Jimmy Garoppolo thing. We can talk about how screwed up that was or how that all went down, and now, as my dad has a new man crush in what's his name, Stedman or Stedham or the
Jarrett Stidham,
the new third stringer for New England. These are guys that they don't necessarily have to say it's either Brady or this guy. Now with Brady's contract, they can work both of them at the same time. Brady's still making money.
Sure.
And, he's worth, I think, upwards of $200 million at this point. Still not the richest person in his family, because that's his wife.
That's his wife. Still not the best looking person in his family either.
Yeah, that's...
At least that's my personal opinion.
I'm with you on that one.
He's not a bad looking man, but he's not the best looking person in his family.
No. So, these are the kinds of things that you have to worry about. Now, how this all plays out for the Patriots' future, as much as I'm a Brady fanboy, as much as I'm a Patriots homer, Belichick doesn't keep people around because he wants them to feel better about themselves. He's not going to waste a roster spot on somebody he thinks can't produce.
Can't provide, yeah.
Which is why their third-string quarterback last year, Etling, is being transferred to wide receiver this year, and everybody's wondering, why is he being moved to wide receiver? What's going on with this? Figuring...
Stidham will make the roster.
Yeah, Stidham will make the roster, so what are they doing with Etling, keeping him as a wide receiver? Well, it's Belichick.
Julian Edelman's getting old, too.
Yeah, it's Belichick.
We need another white wide receiver.
He's not going to keep somebody around just because that player, is a fan favorite or has contributed in the past. Like, he wants people that can produce.
Well, basically that's saying that he's not going to work out as a quarterback, or they'd rather go with Stidham. And here's your Tim Wakefield shot. Look, you sucked as a first baseman, but hey, you got a knuckleball. Let's give it a shot.
Well, the conspiracy theory I'm hearing now is that they trade Brian Hoyer and then move Etling back to third string quarterback, and they run with Stedham as number 2.
Possibly. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not a terrible theory, but I honestly think just with experience and ability. And also just knowledge of the playbook, I think if Brady somehow went down this year, Brian Hoyer would still have this team competitive.
Sure, yeah,
that's my opinion.
Nobody would think that they'd go 12-4 under Hoyer, but nobody thought that they'd go 11-5 with Matt Castle.
No, but I think they could. I think they could go 10-6 and make the playoffs with Brian Hoyer. If Brady went down week 1, I think they could be a 10-6 team.
I think
9-7, maybe something like that.
I think you're right, and I may
and the
have
rest of that division's not, in my opinion, good enough to win 10 games.
Yeah, and if anybody here is betting, which you fucking better well be if you're listening to this podcast, if you can find a line about Brady getting injured in week 1, take it, because exactly 11 years ago, right before the season started, I had DirecTV, and I paid my bill to get NFL Sunday Ticket, and about half an hour later, Brady had his knee injury and was out for the entire year.
And you just rebought Sunday Ticket?
I just rebought Sunday Ticket. Well, I did the payment plan on it just because I'm cheap.
What is it now? It's like $400, right? I cut the cord this year.
I think it's $300 or $350. I don't know what it is, but yeah, we tried cutting the cord, and we can talk about this off the air. But we tried cutting the cord 2 years ago when we bought the new house. That was going to be the plan. I told my wife how to set up the laptop so she could watch Golden Knights games through it on the TV, and it took her one game. She said, I can't fucking do this. I'm frustrated. The next day we ordered DirecTV. And, our feeling is we have money. Why be frustrated? It works. You hit a button, it turns on.
That is fair. Yeah.
So, but yeah, we just ordered the Sunday ticket, so I'm fully expecting a Tom Brady injury in Week 1 this year.
Well, then you would also probably want to take the under on 11.5.
Oh, shit, yeah. I probably
Which
should.
is minus 130.
Yeah, I might do that on the William Hill account. I don't know that I'd do that for our run-it-up bet.
No.
Oh, fuck,
probably.
I got to refund my William Hill account. I emptied it during baseball season because I made like 5 baseball bets, bricked all of them.
Oh, I thought you were going to say emptied in a good way, like you withdrew.
Oh, no, I had run it up during hockey season. I deposited 100. I ended up withdrawing like 250. And I had to get rid of it because otherwise it was going to sit in my account all baseball season. I was going to keep making bets, lose all of it, and I instead just decided to use it to play poker this summer.
All right, so we'll talk about some of those win totals here in a little bit, but put your front office hat on here. In a sense, we're still revolving the Tom Brady situation because many people are saying it's smart, many people are saying it's dumb. I don't know what to think, to be honest with you, because it's almost like it happened. Every time I think there's no way this happens, it can, and it does. Like Peyton Manning and like John Lester. I thought there's no way the Red Sox are going to trade this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been still for 5 years, been a quality player. And then they were like, oh, well, they'll trade him to Chicago. He'll go for a rental, and then he'll come back to the Red Sox. Well, that didn't happen. So it was like, every time you think, oh, this guy's not going anywhere, he is the epitome of Team X. It's
Joe Montana in San Francisco.
Joe Montana. Yeah, he didn't come to mind first because you're older than me.
Don't remind me. You got a birthday coming up, though, don't you?
I do, but I'm still not going to be older than you.
That is true.
No matter how many birthdays you have.
Yeah,
or
well,
birthdays
I'm going to stop keeping track in a year or two. So
that's true. Yeah, I think eventually. I think after like 25, there's no good birthdays.
Yeah.
All the other good birthdays is here. You've hit a milestone of closer to death.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, eventually you hit the can join AARP type.
Is that a thing? Like you want to? I mean, I would love to join that for the discounts, but I think that once I hit that, it's like, oh shit, this is the end. We're starting to be.
Yeah.
But speaking of, like, this is the end. I mean, in AARP, I mean, Tom Brady is getting up to those numbers as well. Now, I think there's no way, if he's healthy, is going to retire. However, there is a chance that this year doesn't meet expectations for Patriot football and Bill Belichick's expectations for Patriot football.
Right.
Whether those two are the same, because I don't know. I mean, I don't know what Bill Belichick's expectation is. I think he's probably the kind of coach that says go out, execute, play hard, and things kind of fall into line, whereas probably your dad is probably like, they need to win 2 Super Bowls this year or it's a bust.
Yeah. You're not wrong about that. But,
if they don't win 2, then it's a failed year.
I mean, we've seen Belichick, when he's unhappy with quarterbacks, he will move on. And we have examples of that. We only have 2 examples of that because he's been with Brady for so long. But the second he got to Cleveland, he got rid of... was it Bernie Kosar or Vinny Testaverde at the time? I think it was Bernie Kosar.
Probably. Well, yeah. I think so.
And he was crucified in the media for it, and then 2 years later they were Super Bowl favorites. That Belichick is the kind of guy where he is going to run his system his way, and if a player is going to get in the way of that or tear him down for that, he's not going to keep that player around. Whether he thinks Brady is the kind of guy that... is going to fall off a cliff, to quote Max fucking Dopestradamus Kellerman. If he honestly thinks that Brady is not the answer at quarterback, Brady is going to get replaced. And in that case, Brady will probably go off to play for like a Tampa Bay or somewhere else for his last year or two.
And see,
probably take that team to 8-8, 9-7, their first decent season in about 5 years.
A decade, yeah.
Yeah, and then...
I want to believe that, but I feel like, and to me this is where I start to doubt that actual thing, because I feel like of all the players on all the teams, including this one, I think Brady writes the end of his story. And now, obviously, this contract doesn't show that, but I feel like Belichick had that exact same thought process, 2 years ago with Garoppolo? And I feel like either Brady and or Kraft was like, no, you're not pushing him out. And I think even still 2 years later, I got to feel that Bob Kraft has basically said, you two, as long as you want to play for the Patriots or coach the Patriots, you'll do it, and you'll do it together. Well, I mean, Belichick can probably go longer in his career because it's coaching. My point being is that I feel like if you put them both in the room and you're Bob Kraft, you, Spike, and Belichick and Brady sit in a room and they both go, it's him or me. Who do you go with?
You go with Belichick.
Okay.
And
I don't hate that, but I also wouldn't disagree with you if you said the other way.
Right, and I mean that's kind of the thing. But if you're, for Bob Kraft, if he's thinking longevity of the team, you're going to get more years out of Belichick than you will out of Brady. You're going to get more results out of Belichick. He's going to be able to mentor more people more efficiently throughout the entire phase of the game than you would get with Brady. So I think these are the things that you would have to think about in a situation like that. I think you're right. I think Kraft has said if both of these guys want to end their careers here in New England, they can. But I still think Belichick is enough of a hard-nosed type coach to say, he'll keep Brady on the roster. He'll keep him as a Patriot if he wants to. But if Brady's not winning games, he's putting in somebody else.
That would be an interesting storyline, benching, if and when Brady got benched.
Yeah.
Especially if Jared Stidham is the guy that Brady or that Belichick wants to be the heir apparent. I'm sure there's been a few that he wants to, but you couldn't get rid of him back then. But yeah, you couldn't get rid of him because of the winning. If you're not winning now, at what point? What point do you move on? That's tough. I mean, how much of a leash does Tom Brady have?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Belichick's not going to be knee-jerk about it. He's not going to say he's
not going to pull him 0-2 after week 2.
Exactly.
Weren't they all? What was that? What year was that? They won the Super Bowl and they got roughed up by Kansas City.
Oh, that was 2014 with
the Seahawks Super Bowl.
The Trent Dilfer. This team is done. The dynasty is done. Yeah. That fabulous rant.
I mean, they go out and lose the first 2 games, 30-0, 35-0. You're not getting pulled there. But if they start the season 0-5, which theoretically is virtually impossible, but if they start the season 0-5, then you might start hearing, especially because of this contract too, because of the way it voids after 2019. And again, if it voids after 2019, what was even the purpose of signing the contract? I mean, I've heard the troll job, the $28.3 million average annual value. While funny, it's irrelevant. But I mean, they've played in 2 Super Bowls since then. I mean, I'm willing to believe that Tom Brady did troll the Falcons with that. But I mean, other than that, this is theoretically an irrelevant contract. I don't get it.
Yeah, and I don't know that I get it either, except that. Brady has said that he wants to play until he's 45. He just turned 42. So even though this contract doesn't run the full year, I think this was their way of doing a 1-year deal. And I think they're just going to continue to give him 1-year deals, even if they're structured to look like multi-year deals that can be voided after 1 year. So I think that's...
franchise tag him at that point.
Yeah, I think that's...
trying to just pay him and...
Yeah, and... that's the kind of thing that, if they franchise tag him, he's going to, go from $28 million to probably like $50, just the way that some of these other fucking contracts.
That's true. As the contracts get higher and higher,
So, and Kraft is he's cheap as shit. He's not going to pay players. And that's one of the biggest complaints I've had about this team is that they've let players who are still capable of playing walk over contracts. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes it's for the best, like with Nate Solder. But, sometimes it can be a problem, like, seeing some of these, like the defensive guys. No, I can't think of his fucking name. Big fat guy that went to Houston.
Wilfork?
Yeah, there we go. those are the kinds of guys that, they won their championships and they were like, all right, now I need to get paid.
Right. And you can understand that.
Yeah, but I mean,
and most of them, I would say more often than not, it's been the right move. And yes, you're going to have. I mean, look at Malcolm Butler. He was statistically the worst cornerback in the NFL last year.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, you look at Jamie Collins. I need to get paid. All right, fine. You're going to Cleveland, bro. And now he's back.
Yeah, now he's back, and he's playing better than ever. Apparently.
Yeah. So I mean, sometimes it works out for the best. It's just like every single thing. I mean, Belichick has failed on some draft picks, but then he obviously has the ace of spades.
Yep.
I mean, so. Anyways, so let's talk a few. We'll start with the Patriots. You talked about the 11.5 wins, which they got 11 last year. They were 11-5 last year, and the win total, I believe, was 12. So the under actually was good there.
Yeah, I think they were overvalued a little bit last year, especially given that just about everybody in their division was starting a rookie quarterback. This year, we know what the Patriots are. We know, and
now everybody's a second-year quarterback.
Yeah, but the New England defense looks significantly better this year than it did last year.
Which is saying something because they were pretty good last year.
This team should scare the hell out of the rest of the league right now, and that's as a fan, I'm pretty happy about.
I mean, where's the weakness? I mean, theoretically,
tight end, and that's assuming Gronkowski doesn't come back.
He's not coming back before week 6, I think.
Probably not. Did I tell you we might be able to stay in Gronkowski's old condo when we go back to Boston?
No, you did not.
Yeah, so very quick side note here. Emily, or my wife's boss is from Providence originally. Now lives in Vegas, obviously. Goes back to Boston, New England, quite often. Had a friend that, is a realtor and had Gronkowski's condo as one of the listings. And this guy, this partner at a law firm, just on a whim, bought Gronkowski's waterfront condo in Boston.
Because he can?
Yeah, just because he can. Just because he wanted a place in Boston, Boston proper, right on the waterfront. Mm-hmm. And but he's never there. He never uses it. So when we go back for Christmas, we might be able to stay there. So I'm pretty. He has de-gronked the condo. As I was
about to say, there's probably some stains there that you may or may not be able to get out.
Apparently, there is a giant, and I mean giant, Obama poster in there.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't realize Gronkowski was political enough to have something like that, but yes, he
Obama's a cool dude, whether you like him or not. I mean, he's very chill and. Yeah, whatever. But
anyway, that's probably the one weakness on this New England roster that I can see because, obviously the depth with Brady, Hoyer to Stedman looks great. Wide receivers,
it's Stidham. It's not Stedman. It's not Oprah's husband.
I don't give a shit.
You will when he's the next Tom Brady.
Well, I mean, this is like the. I don't know if you remember when Jonathan Papelbon was a rookie. And people kept calling him John and Johnny. He's like, no, it's Jonathan. And then he started winning games, and they either called him Jonathan or Mr. Papelbon.
Mr. Papelbon.
But the quarterback depth looks great. The wide receiver depth, especially if Josh Gordon gets reinstated. Edelman, Gordon, N'Keal Harry, the new rookie there, Myers. They're starting to look great at wide receiver. Running back, obviously, with Sony Michel leading the way is going to be great. Defense looks strong, and this is a team that, the New England's defensive strategy, and this is the one thing that other teams haven't caught on to yet, is that New England doesn't pay for sacks. They lead the league in pressures and quarterback rushes, but they never lead the league in sacks.
Money's in the back seven.
And they never pay for sacks, and they had 9 sacks in their first preseason game. And they were coming from everywhere. So looking at the way that this team is starting to structure, and then the secondary, the defensive secondary with Gilmore and
McCourties.
Yeah, where is the weakness on this team? You're absolutely right. So this is why they, along with Kansas City, are favored to win the Super Bowl. They're both going off at 6-1 right now. New England has the highest win total prediction in the league at 11.5. I think 11.5. I think it's going to be the same thing as last year. I think it's a little bit high. You can't get great value because it's sitting at minus 130
for the under.
The under,
it's plus money for the over if you think they're 13 and 12 and 4 or better. But
so that's a little rough because the division is winnable, obviously for New England.
But that's only 6 max.
Yeah.
Still got to win 6 more.
Yeah.
If they sweep the division.
And
we know, New England going down to Miami, so that's one.
Especially in September, they're going to lose that game.
Yeah. So,
these are the types of things that you have to look at. I think even at the minus 130, the under is there for New England right now.
So I was thinking about this as you were speaking, after you went on off your verbal diarrhea there about the Patriots' weaknesses, and I found one.
Okay.
And actually, I'm surprised you didn't say it. Josh McDaniels. I know you love Josh McDaniels.
Yes, I do.
So that was the one I was thinking. I think he's going to say it, but he won't. So.
Yeah, no, I didn't get there.
But you had a point about New England having the highest win total, and we have New England, Philly, New Orleans, L.A. Well, both L.A., Kansas City, and Indianapolis all with double-digit win totals. And I don't know. As far as picking win totals, is the value in trying to figure out who the best teams are going to be, who the worst teams are going to be, or who's going to be like the ones that interest me the most are kind of like the Buffalo Bills. Like, okay, they showed some promise last year. We thought they were going 0-16. Josh Allen came in and actually showed flashes. 6 wins, last year. 7.5 this year. Everybody's like, thumbs up, it's going over. Chicago Bears, 12 wins. They were the surprise team. Now they're on the radar. They're in a really tough division with Minnesota and Green Bay, who's gotten better just simply by having Aaron Rodgers back.
I noticed you didn't mention Detroit as that division being tough.
Let's not get ridiculous.
Sorry, Token.
Although Detroit could surprise some people, they don't surprise me or Token. But my point is, if in your opinion, you have teams like. Some of these win totals right in the middle, I think, are terrible to try to figure out. Jacksonville, 7.5. Carolina, 7.5. Baltimore Ravens, 8 wins. Baltimore Ravens made the playoffs last year, and they were 4-5 at one point. Lamar Jackson was huge, but then he started to reveal that basically he couldn't throw the football. Watching the first preseason game, looks like he got a little better. I don't have really too much desire to try to figure out these 8-win teams. I think, in my opinion, the better option for handicapping is trying to find the Arizona Cardinals. Can they beat 5.5? The Miami Dolphins, can they beat 4.5? Or you look at the other spectrum. Okay, I think New England 11.5, just purely by the numbers, you should bet the under because they were 11-5 last year. If they take a step back and go 10-6, or even God forbid 9-7, that can still win the division in that division. So you wonder if there's kind of a foot off the gas mentality. I don't know. But, you talk about Kansas City, 10.5. You've been blasting the under since the moment they were eliminated from the playoffs last year.
Yep. So. Yeah, and Kansas City and the Rams both of these. Kansas City sitting at 10.5. The Rams are at 10. Both the unders are sitting at minus 110. So, you're paying the juice. But I love the unders on both. Which is
crazy because you look at both these teams and Kansas City was 12-4, and Los Angeles, the Rams, were 13-3.
Right.
And while they're both essentially pick'ems. You're laying juice on either side. So I think, to be honest with you, those are layoffs in me because I really think all you're doing is just paying a sports book to hold your money at that point. Because if Mahomes goes down, Kansas City's not getting a 10.5 wins.
Oh no.
But if LA, and again this might be biased, if Jared Goff goes down, I don't know, Blake Bortles might be able to get them 10 wins with the offense and the defense that they have.
Maybe.
Kansas City's defense is atrocious. They're not getting 10.5 wins, and you don't believe they're getting 10.5 or better with Mahomes.
You're right, and so the way I'm looking at it is, number one, they're going to be playing a much tougher schedule. I think the Chargers in that division are really going to give them noise. One of my future bets is betting the Chargers to win that division because I was getting them at 3-1. So I think that Kansas City is going to have a very hard time. I think you're especially right about Kansas City's defense. I think we've seen with mobile quarterbacks, especially guys like Mahomes, where the league adjusts to them and can slow them down, and especially now that they're playing a first-place schedule and they have targets on their backs. And I think this is going to be the team that people want to beat is Kansas City. So that's why I'm down on them. And with the Rams at 13-3, they looked unstoppable until they got to the Patriots, and the Patriots just gave you the blueprint on how to beat these guys.
Right.
And it's not that hard. It's you don't set your defense until the microphone shut off in the helmet, so Sean McVay can't talk to Jared Goff. And if Jared Goff has to figure this stuff out on his own while he's on the field, if he has to figure it out on the fly, he can't do it.
Right.
He's not capable of doing it. So I think the Rams are going to get fucking trounced. Like, they have the win total at 10. I would have taken the under if it was 8.5.
I'll give you that.
I think this is
I'll book that bet.
I know you would.
I would book the over on that.
I'm taking the under 10. I just think that this is a team that can be beat, and especially on the defensive side, losing Ndamukong Suh doesn't help them. So I don't see how this team.
I just feel like there's a lot of situation here where, and I've noticed this, and I've just learned this. I don't know if maybe it's true over the course of many years, but when win totals first opened up, there was a lot less 110 either ways. As the preseason, as we're getting closer to the season, you look at a lot of these teams, it's 110 either way.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a common trend or maybe I just noticed it this year, but like the Miami Dolphins opened up at 5.5 in the win total, and the win over was plus money. Now we're at 4.5, and the over's minus money. So, and again, the one I opened up was Action Network, which was 5.5. Now it's moved to 4.5 here on odds. Was this Odds Shark? Yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody's different strokes. It might be just two different lines, and maybe I'm just rereading it differently. But it seems like there's a lot of minus 110s, and I find that there's no value in letting a sports book hold my money for 6 months or whatever.
Yeah,
4 months.
And that's sort of the downside of doing the futures, especially doing the futures in our run it up bet. Is that this is now money that's
your money's
banked.
locked with no interest, no escrow for 4 months, and I mean theoretically, okay. So let's take a team. Let's take the Dolphins. Say you like the Dolphins over 4.5. Are you going to lay 145 juice for 4 months, or can you just martingale until you get to 5 wins if you believe they're going to go over?
Yeah, and that's you are certainly better off doing it that way, and I think
you could lose more, but if you're confident in your pick,
yeah.
I feel like you're going to get plus money. They're going to be dogs in 75 to 80% of their games or more.
Yeah, and I think Fake Token is a big proponent of this too, of trying to find the teams where you would rather just bet them as dogs throughout the season rather than
bet their win total.
Yeah, bet the total. So it makes a lot of sense. The one win total that we didn't talk about that I'm actually very interested in, I don't know that I'm going to touch, but I'm interested to see how the team does, is Denver. Now that with Flacco under center, they were able to win 6 games.
7.
6 games last year. They only go up 1 game with Flacco under center, who's got to be better than what's his nuts from last year.
And the thing is, they won 6 games. It's Case Keenum, by the way.
Oh yeah,
not what's his nuts. That's his nickname. They actually almost beat Kansas City both times too.
Yeah.
So they had Kansas City in tight games.
So that's the one that I'm very interested in, especially at 7 wins, minus 110 either way. I think that is something that's definitely worth looking at.
I got to imagine the crazy thing is you've got to think John Elway. I mean, again, his track record with quarterbacks is atrocious. But I mean, Joe Flacco, Case Keenum. I mean, 6-1. No,
maybe.
I mean, yes, he's got the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and
that's the thing that's keeping him afloat in this league.
Flacco still has the ability to bomb it downfield and get the defensive pass interference calls. So, that is his bread and butter.
Yeah.
But I mean, he has to be better than Case Keenum. He just has to. Actually, you know what? We should look at stats on that because that seems like something that would be easily comparable to one another. So. But you're also playing in a division that you can't expect to win based on having both Kansas City and the Chargers in front of you.
And maybe the Raiders, if Carr, can develop, quickly. I guess I don't know.
Yeah,
you would say quickly, but he's been in the league 4 years now.
4 years.
This is either is his 4th year or this is his 5th year. I don't remember which, but
yeah. Flacco got benched last year, so I guess it's kind of hard to compare him to Case Keenum straight up last season. But
yeah, he never came back from his injury, I don't think.
Yeah, Keenum was 18 touchdowns, 15 picks. Flacco was 12 touchdowns, 6 picks. So you have to figure
12 touchdowns, 6 picks was, I believe, in like 8 games.
Yeah, so the accuracy's got to be there for Flacco compared to Case Keenum. So
what do you like with this Denver 7?
I think over, but barely.
8-8?
I think 8-8 is pretty realistic for a team.
That's why
like
I think, and I don't think that Sportsbook's ever going to do it, but I think all win totals should be hooks.
Yeah.
I really don't want to I especially don't want to put my money away for 4 months to push.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point.
But that's not my decision. That is the decision of sportsbooks and sportsbook managers, neither of which I am. So, all right, putting a bow on this, what are some other, we've been talking about this through text, what are some other win totals you like one way or the other as we put a bow kind of here on NFL talk before we get to Chris the Commish Moon?
Yeah, I don't know, the Steelers at 9, I have no idea what to make of this team whatsoever. This isn't one that I'd touch, but with the under getting plus money, I think I would lean under on them.
I still think they're the best team in the division.
They probably are, but that's why I'm not super crazy about trying to touch the line. I just, they lose Le'Veon Bell, which, obviously they didn't have him last year either, but they lose him, they lose Antonio Brown. I don't think Tomlin is much of a coach. Roethlisberger, he still looks good, but he's, not quite as old as Brady, but he's getting up there.
They were, 8-8 last year?
They were...
they had a tie, so were they 7-8-1 or something like that?
9-6-1, I think.
9-6-1?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because Baltimore got in at 10-6 or something like that.
So
9-6-1, no Le'Veon Bell. Theoretically, James Washington, and they got a new receiver. I'm trying to think of his name. I'm drawing a blank. Those guys just have to be as good as Juju, because I think as Juju was last year, They have to be as good as Juju was last year, or even somewhat on par, because I think Juju's already pretty close to Antonio Brown in that offense.
I think you're right.
So theoretically, they didn't take too much of a step back. They already adjusted to life without Bell, and now I don't know if life without Brown, because as much as we talked about Antonio Brown, I'm still of the belief games are won in the trenches, and I think they've got a really good offensive line, a really good defensive line, and pretty good defense. So
yeah, that's going to be the question: is how the defense can.
It's Big Ben and Tomlin though eventually, because they're going to have to play the big games, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily have the confidence in them.
I don't either, but I still think they're going to win this division.
And the other one that
would need to be over 9 wins.
Yeah, and the other one that we need to talk about though is your fiance, the Russell Wilson and Seattle Seahawks.
Oh. Don't tell my other fiance.
Yeah.
She doesn't know about him.
So
what are they sitting at right now?
10 wins last year. They're at 9 this year. Over 9 wins is going off at plus 110 right now.
I mean, I like it again to be over. I mean, if you like the Rams to be under, who takes that division? I mean, It's either San Francisco or Seattle.
And that's the question and San Francisco is sitting win total of 8.
8, yeah. So I figured.
So, these are the kinds of things that you can look at. And this may be a spot where you even want to bet the team to win the division straight up. Right now, the Rams are going off at 4-7, which is just
nothing
idiotic.
Yeah.
So you're either looking at Seattle at 7-2 or San Francisco at 4-1.
6-1, half dozen.
Yeah, and it's. Do you think Garoppolo can stay healthy, which he hasn't been able to do yet in his career, and B can be good enough to beat Seattle and beat the.
Just throw $100
games.
on San Francisco and $100 on Seattle and. You're going to make money if one of them wins the division.
Yeah, I mean that's.
You're going to make what? 100, 3.5 to 1. You make 350 minus the 100 is 250, and then you'll make 400 minus 1. You'll make 250 or $300 if one of them wins the division. If they lose, if the Rams win again, because let's face it, Arizona's not winning. Then if the Rams win again, you're really only out $200. It's not a terrible bet.
Yeah, Arizona's going off at 20 to 1. You don't think they can win it with Kyler?
Well, I mean, you could always throw 100 on Seattle, 100 on the 49ers, and
like $20
on Arizona. I mean, you're still going to profit if the Rams don't win that division.
Yeah.
So that may be a Vegas Squares communal bet.
There we go.
That we put together, and we'll buy a buffet spread for the Super Bowl podcast.
Yeah. Fat load of fucking good that does me.
You can have certain things.
I can nibble.
on your helmet.
Oh, God.
All right, so let's take a left turn on the start of football season and bring back in Chris the Commish Moon, which I think he was on the last podcast we did before the hiatus. So, without further ado, let's bring Chris back on. I think in the beginning, the last time we talked was the beginning of the season, and we discussed our World Series picks.
Oh, man, what a season it's been. Not much, man. It's, quiet, getting ready for football, but, we got baseball. Kind of disappointed with the Brewers' season has gone, even though they are in the wild card. I expected them to do a little better. And the Red Sox are the Red Sox.
Yeah, well, you had I thought you had Brewers and Yankees. Am I mistaken?
I Brewers and the Yankees early in the year, and I did say I was very concerned with the Red Sox bullpen when we talked. I think that was the March, right?
Yeah, whenever the season starts. So yeah, around March, I guess.
Yeah, I said the bullpen was going to be a problem, and it certainly was. I expected them to make the move to pick up an Edwin Diaz from who we'll talk about in a little bit, or somebody like Shane Green, and that didn't quite happen. Shane went to the Braves, who I really, really like going forward. Of course, they're in first place, and they did fix the broken bullpen, getting Shane Green from the Tigers and Mark Melanson from the Giants. The Braves look like they're really, really tough, and they're going to compete with the Dodgers. I have to revise the way I'm thinking and go, Dodgers Braves in the NLCS. That's how I see it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're definitely probably that's the chalk pick right now in the NL because both teams look good with the Braves and the Dodgers. It's hard to really bet against the Dodgers considering the performance of the last 3 years for the LA club. But the NL has got, in my opinion, the tighter bunch of quality teams, especially now with some teams entering into the picture like the Mets and the Nationals have come along in the last few. And I mean, you look at the wild card. I mean, you've got 7 teams, including the Brewers, who are holding the second wild card spot. So 6 teams theoretically within 4.5 games of Milwaukee right there, and Milwaukee's only 1 game behind Washington. So the NL wild card, stretch is going to be one of great interest because, like you said, San Francisco sold off their reliever in Mark Melanson. Arizona sold off their ace in Zach Greinke. And those 2 teams could still realistically, have a great shot at making the playoffs. I mean, the Mets, who we thought were out, have won 14 of their last 15. And I think made the surprise deal of the deadline picking up Marcus Stroman.
For sure. That was just a head scratcher when it happened. But Stroman, certainly we thought that Wheeler was going to be flipped, or even Stroman would be flipped a day later. That didn't quite happen. They have, as you said, reeled off, 13 of 14 or 14 of 15. I think one of the big underrated things that happened with that team is Robinson Cano going on the injured list, because he is just a statue at second base. He was underperforming. They were able to move Jeff McNeil out of the outfield back to his natural position at second base. He's not much. Doesn't have much more range than Cano, but I mean, you and I probably have about the same amount of range as Robinson Cano at this stage in his career. The infield defense still a question mark, but getting and that TL of Cano has really helped. And last night was ridiculous. against the Nationals, you're down 3 runs in the bottom of the ninth, and they end up walking it off. The Godfather hits the 3-run homer to tie. That got to really boost the confidence, especially with the remaining 2 games coming up today and tomorrow against the Nationals. They're seriously chasing, and that also has to affect the psyche of the Nationals players, because that was just a game, you can't lose that game. The Nats made so many moves to bolster their bullpen, and then all of a sudden it blew up last night.
Yeah, I mean, the Nationals are still very much in the thick of it. I mean, they've also, too, among these 8 teams, have really been playing some hot baseball as well. I mean, yes, we saw, the what have you done for me lately, blowing a 3-run lead. That's kind of detrimental, especially with these razor-thin, margins in terms of games ahead of the competition. But they've been playing some pretty good baseball as well. I mean, I think all of the teams in this area have, except for the teams that you would expect to be in the positions of playoff positions or even division-leading positions, and that's Milwaukee and Philadelphia. I think the 2 teams with high expectations, especially Milwaukee after last season and Philadelphia after the offseason that they had, theoretically they're still obviously in the race. Philadelphia half game back at Milwaukee, and Milwaukee in the second wild card. But these have to be seen as somewhat disappointing at this point, considering they're both probably expected to be Central Division and Eastern Division leaders up to this point. But, the bullpen hasn't been what it was last year in Milwaukee, and I don't think Philadelphia's acquisitions have necessarily been up to par with the expectations of which, Philly fans are definitely a fan of. They'll boo you in a heartbeat. I think it took, 4 games for Harper to get booed in Philly?
Yeah, that was about it. Although last night he did hit 2 home runs. I was, as you know, I work at the sports book, and I dealt with a couple of Philly customers in the last couple of days, and they, we talked, and they said, yeah, we did not like the Harper move, too much money, and it's just like, what have you done for me lately? He's batting, right around 250. And I think the contract is going to be a hindrance later on in his career, because we really thought he was going to be this 300 hitter like a Mike Trout, and he's just not. Yeah, he's got the great power. I don't see him as a complete player. His defense is not fantastic. He's got the great arm, but it's just, and I don't think he's the real clubhouse guy that you want. I mean, the Nationals seem to have moved on quite well without him. Juan Soto really, as I said before the season started, they're not going to miss a beat with him, and Victor Robles playing in center field. That really helped out the team staff with a little more outfield defense, more range. With the exception of last night, Adam Eaton misplayed that ball that ended up being the walk-off. But definitely the Nationals' defense is very, very sharp. And, they're going to definitely be in there to push the Braves and the Cubs and the Dodgers for the NLCS. It's going to be interesting with that rotation as well.
Well, I got to admit, I now have a rooting interest in one of these teams because of some bets I laid down. Actually got really lucky when news of the Stroman trade broke. I went to check on William Hill just to think maybe if they keep, Wheeler and Syndergaard and DeGrom, they would have a pretty nasty rotation here, and still found the Mets at 200-1 to win the World Series and 100-1 to win the NL East at that point. So I can honestly say the NL East is probably a little out of reach, but getting into the playoffs, I think I found myself a nice hedge opportunity at 200-1.
For sure. I was a little bit late a little bit late to the window on that. I got them at 75-1 for the series, 55-1 to win the East. And you can still get them at a pretty good number, I think, to win the National League East. It's going to be very hard, but hey, a couple of dollars, to win, at even 30-1, why not take a shot?
Yeah, absolutely.
That
rotation has some definite potential. So let's flip the script and look over in the AL. And 2 months ago, it almost seemed like a foregone conclusion that the Cleveland Indians were probably going to be sellers at the trade deadline and probably not going to be contending for the AL Central, even though it's not one of the more power divisions. They decided to sit pat, basically, added Yasiel Puig, got rid of Trevor Bauer, so headache for headache, I guess you could say, in the headache swap. But they have basically, over the last 2 months, closed the gap and are now in technical, theoretical percentage first place against Minnesota, who actually was my American League World Series pick on our podcast. I had Minnesota and Washington, who it looks like all four of our teams are currently in the playoffs, which is good. But Minnesota has definitely, I don't know if letting them back in is the case in baseball. A lot of times because you don't play each other that often, even though it is about 20 games a year. But over the course of the 2 months, Cleveland has basically crept up, and we got a dogfight in the Central here.
Yeah, for sure. Boy, the Twins, that was a team that I really expected to make a big move, bolstering their bullpen, because that has been a problem in their pitching staff. As we touched on before the season started, the offense is fantastic. We had questions about the entire rotation and the bullpen, the whole staff. The Indians making that deal, getting rid of Trevor Bauer, they had the idea that, hey, Danny Salazar's coming back from injury and he will be able to plug in, maybe not as well as Trevor Bauer, but hey, he's a starter that can go six. And Corey Kluber is on the mend. If we can get some offense for Trevor Bauer, who is obviously another distraction in the clubhouse, and, the whole incident with throwing the baseball from the pitcher's mound over the center field wall when Terry Francona came to get him, I think that was the last straw. But, yeah, you say, they picked up Yasiel Puig. They also got Franmil Reyes from the Padres, another big power bat for the outfield. Their outfield production before this the deadline, it was really, really bad. Getting those two bats has really helped to rival the Twins' offensive numbers, and their rotation is definitely better than the Twins. Now, they're in a series this weekend, and it doesn't even look like the Twins are in the same league as the Indians. Getting blown out yesterday 6-2, and I believe the day before they also got beat rather handily. We'll see what happens today and tomorrow, but I don't see the Twins now really winning this division. It's the Indians. Shane Bieber has been fantastic, and as I said, Corey Kluber is right around the corner coming back. He's on a rehab assignment. So the Indians, they're the pick. I mean, yeah, we love the Twins, but really disappointed that their best pickups for their bullpen were Sam Dyson, who the story on that was, hey, they acquired Sam Dyson and he caught a flight, I guess, the night that he was traded, an overnight flight, got in at like 4 a.m. and got no sleep, immediately was called on to close out the game in his first appearance, and he is now on the injured list with some kind of shoulder or elbow impingement. And, I think it was, the guy is totally fatigued. He should not have been pitching that first day. He should have had a day to acclimate himself to Minnesota. That may be a problem. They did get Sergio Romo from the Marlins. Sergio Romo, he's not the same pitcher he was with the Giants. Of course, he's like 38 or 39 years old now. But not a really big move to help that bullpen. So, yeah, the Indians, definitely the class of the Central, as always.
Yeah, most definitely. And like you said, I mean, if Cleveland's got all that cooking, and on top of that, Minnesota just lost Nelson Cruz for a little bit of time, too, potentially the rest of the year. So we'll have to see what the story is with that, with the wrist. It does not look good for Minnesota. And
well, I did see something about the Twins without Nelson Cruz in the lineup. They're 21-7, and their offense is actually a run better. They score a run more than with him in the lineup, which was interesting to see that. But, yeah, losing a big bat like that is going to really hurt.
Well, maybe not, depending on those stats. But you're right. You never. It's always theoretical theory. You want the talent in the lineup, even if the stats, say otherwise. But you got the two other teams leading the division in Houston and the Yankees. Houston at the deadline got Greinke first start. He was fine, got the win. The Yankees really stood pat, which isn't the worst thing. I mean, they probably could have used a starting pitcher, but they decided, not to really make any moves. But what do you see with these two teams going down the stretch? I don't see anyone really catching Houston, and the Yankees are currently, 6 or 7 games ahead of the Rays. I think actually maybe even more. I don't see any teams catching those two unless you think otherwise. Or 9.5.
No,
9.5, excuse me, 9.5.
Yeah, I don't see anybody catching Houston. You touched on, they got Greinke, but really the under-the-radar move was getting Aaron Sanchez from Toronto. I can't believe it. They got him. Hey, if he's right and he's around like these studs, Verlander, Greinke, Garrett Cole, all of their knowledge rubbed off on Aaron Sanchez. Well, in his first start, he started and they had a combined no-hitter. Mm-hmm. This guy 3 years ago was an absolute beast. He had blister problems last year, and he had a really terrible year in Toronto. I don't know if part of that was the infield defense in Toronto, the range. But we will see tonight, as it is Saturday here. He is pitching today against the White Sox. So we'll see, if he backs up that combined no-hitter with another strong start. As far as the Yankees go, they won 8 out of, or they just lost last night to Toronto, but they had an 8-game winning streak. Fantastic offense. The pitching, it's questionable, but they keep winning, and they got guys like Gio Urshela, who is this guy, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's a great defensive third baseman, and you put on the pinstripes, and all of a sudden, you turn into Greg Nettles or, another famous Yankee third baseman, It's amazing. He turns into A-Rod, for God's sake. Mike Tauchman. Who is this guy? AAA player comes up and he becomes a quality performer for the Yankees. It's just an aura all about, Yankee Stadium. The ghosts of Yankee past are helping these guys out. And, they have a huge lead. The Red Sox are not going to really push them. I had hoped that they would, but it was kind of embarrassing down at last weekend.
Yeah, we'll get to the Red Sox in a second, but you kind of brought up, the guessing game, the guess who for the people putting on pinstripes. What does that do to your thought process in regards to Aaron Boone for Coach of the Year?
I certainly think he's got to be up for it. And I would probably, if I was a voter, I would probably give it to him simply because of all of the injuries they've had, all of the star players that have not played a game or played, less than 15 games this year. I mean, you just look up and down that list. You've got, Severino hasn't pitched at all. I can go up and down here. It's amazing what he has done with these guys. Severino, Stanton, and Betances, you don't know when they're coming back. It looks like Stanton and Severino are rehabbing, so they should be back soon. But to be as far ahead of the Red Sox and the Rays with this lineup is just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you had Gregorius hurt for a while. You had Tulowitzki, his replacement, retire. I mean, just all of the I don't know, chaos is the right word for him to just navigate. I mean, talk about navigating a season. Judge has only played, half the season. You got, DJ LeMahieu, who, historically speaking, Rockies players don't, perform this well outside of a Rocky uniform, especially, outside of Coors Field with a regular basis. DJ LeMahieu's looking, he's getting whispers as an MVP candidate this year. You're right, Gleyber Torres is another one. We knew about him last year, but still kind of pacing the team. And you're right, Giancarlo Stanton, 10 games this year. They picked up what's his name? Encarnacion, who's been, relatively down for what we understand as a standard Encarnacion year. I mean, you expect, 30, 40 home runs out of this guy, and he's barely playing and doesn't really have anything going on, hitting about 238, which isn't shocking because that's kind of what he does.
Well, he just broke his wrist, so he's going to be out, I think.
Probably the rest of the year.
Most likely the rest of the year. Yeah. But, I mean, they got guys like Luke Boyd. All of a sudden, the cast off, just like the Dodgers. They take one man's trash as another man's treasure. And I don't know what it is, but they plug guys in, and, they, like I said, they put on those pinstripes, and it's magic.
Seems to be that way, I will tell you. But, all right, so let's look at the Red Sox, because I put out a tweet right before the deadline, putting out a poll of players who may be traded or most likely to be traded. And on that poll, I put Andrew Kashner, who was the new acquisition at the time, and also I put Mookie Betts, which actually received a few votes. And I got a few comments on both of those names. I also had Brock Holt and Mitch Moreland on there for just purposes of rounding out the poll. But people told me I was crazy on Kashner was just acquired, blah, blah, this. They're only 5.5 out of the wild card. This is a crazy person to put on the poll. And Mookie Betts wasn't a real candidate, but, I thought maybe if Dombrowski's really in a selling mode, he would, entertain offers at that point for Mookie Betts, especially since the contract extension talks really haven't been. But, I said that, the next 8 games before the trade deadline were Tampa Bay 4 and New York 4, and I believe they went 2-6 or 1-7 in those games. And Dombrowski, I almost feel like he might have egg on his face for kind of standing pat. Didn't become a buyer, didn't become a seller, and I don't want to say he's paying for it because that's not the right word, but it just seems like a team who should be responding positively for all keeping their jobs and keeping, not having to move anywhere in the middle of the year. They just seem to be very malcontent, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
Or content, excuse me, not malcontent. That's not the right word.
I could have seen a move of J.D. Martinez. However, I think some of these contracts are just they wouldn't get enough. I believe that Mookie Betts has said that he's going to test free agency. I would be surprised, however, if he is not re-signed. They love him in Boston. To lose Mookie Betts, that would really, really hurt. They've got to fix the bullpen, the back end of the bullpen. Now, the middle relief has not been terrible, but it's closed out games, 8th and 9th inning. They just can't go with these guys. These guys don't have the pedigree. Brandon Workman, come on. He's a middle guy.
And I feel like some of these guys have had multiple chances over multiple years to prove themselves, and it seems like nothing, especially a guy like Brandon Workman.
Yeah. It's disappointing in Boston, but, you do have the Patriots starting up again, and we're going to be fired up. But the Red Sox have some work to do if they want to make that second wild card. Oakland's not going anywhere. Minnesota might be the team that starts to really slip and fall. Oakland and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is going to be getting Blake Snell back at some point. You're hoping to see the 2018 version of Blake Snell. They're also getting Tyler Glasnow back. And as you remember, early in the season, the guy was lights out. So if they get those two guys for the front end of their rotation, this team can give the Yankees problems because of the quality starting pitching there. And I really like what the Rays did when they got Jesus Aguilar from Milwaukee. Milwaukee didn't need him anymore. They didn't want him. So I thought getting a power bat to play first base, DH, against left-handed pitching, I thought was a great move for a team that really doesn't have the resources to spend the money to get guys. Really an under-the-radar move, getting Eric Sogard from Toronto, another very nice piece, very versatile, fits into that team. I like the moves that Tampa Bay has made to keep themselves relevant for this wild card.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a team who, always just kind of the nickel and dime approach. I don't know if Moneyball's the right word, but they, Oakland and Tampa Bay, always kind of right there in that wild card race, and here they are again. But, I mean, you look at that. I mean, theoretically, I think the contenders for playoff spots pretty much stop with Boston unless Texas decides to make a run. But, yeah, you have Boston, Oakland, Tampa Bay, Minnesota at this point, or Cleveland, depending on what day it is, and because they're percentage points away from each other. I mean, who do you think really at the close of the season is going to finish up with those two spots?
Well, I don't have faith that the Red Sox are going to be able to catch anybody. I like Oakland's chances, and with Tampa Bay getting their two aces back, I like Tampa. Minnesota, it all depends on if the offense can continue to just out-hit everybody, because the pitching is just not there. You can't trust anybody in the back end of that back end of the bullpen. I mean, so I would say, Minnesota. How far ahead are they for the wild card for the first team out? Are they three up on Oakland?
They are 3 up on Tampa Bay and 4 on Oakland.
So they're in good shape if they can weather the storm a little bit. But they've been playing lackluster ball lately. Boy, oh boy, I'm gonna go Oakland as the second wild card. I'm gonna say the Minnesota, Cleveland, they're both gonna get in, and I'm gonna say Oakland out west. I hate to say it. I mean, it could be Tampa as well. Red Sox just too far to go. I can't, I can't do it. And again, all my friends back east, all those native New Englanders, they're going to hate me. But hey, we got to do something. Next year, we'll be right back at it. But with the current pitching staff, I just, I don't like it.
Yeah, and it's tough for the Red Sox, especially being 5.5 games back and only having 7 games left against the teams that are ahead of them. That creates a spot where, obviously the shortest path is a straight line, directly heads up. But when you have to play other teams, especially they got a long road trip at the end of this month with San Diego, and then they have Colorado, and then they go to Anaheim for 2 weeks, basically. That's going to be a big stretch for them. In my opinion.
Yeah.
And then second to last series of the year, or excuse me, third to last, they've got Tampa Bay for a 4-game stretch. If they're still in it, those are going to be big time periods. I mean, not to say that the rest of the season's not as important, but those are going to be big pieces of the Red Sox schedule going down the stretch here.
David Price is now on the Eastern so he's going to be out probably maybe just one start, but he's on the 10-day IL. That's going to hurt a little bit. Who's going to pitch in his spot? You can't be punting games. They did show up offensively last night, scoring 16 against Anaheim, and they got them again today. Anaheim has been really, really awful over the last 2 weeks. They're just they're bottoming out. And I feel sorry, for Mike Trout, but, hey, you know what you were getting into when you signed that long-term deal to stay in Anaheim. You could have gone anywhere else and be making just as much or more money, but he's obviously comfortable in L.A.
Yep, he made his bed, and that's the one he has to lie in. So, but you know what? That's his decision. So, let's wrap it up here. We'll wrap it up with a revisit to your World Series picks. Again, you had the New York Yankees and the Milwaukee Brewers. I can give you an opportunity to change that right now, or are you going to stick with what you got?
Oh, I have to change it. I'm sorry. I'm a complete believer in the Houston Astros. I know it's super chalk, chalky. Hey, chalk tastes good sometimes. This team, I don't see a weakness on that team at all. Houston's going to win it. The Brewers, we had concerns. They didn't fix those concerns to my belief anyway. I like your Nationals pick there, but yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go with the Nationals, even though they've never done it. The Dodgers really pissed me off last night, dropping a 3-2 lead in the ninth, or a 2-0 lead in the ninth to lose in extras. That cost me some money at the window and really aggravated me. I hate the Nationals bullpen. I still do. No, it's going to be the Braves. The Braves, and the Astros. And the Astros are going to take it down. That's
All right, there you go. Braves and Astros. He has completely shifted gears from March.
Yeah.
So, all right, fair enough. Well, Chris, I appreciate you as always coming on the podcast, and hopefully we'll have you on a few more times before the end of the regular season, or excuse me, the end of the season, and then postseason play, and then obviously the World Series.
You know it, man. I look forward to it.
All right, my friend. We will catch you next time. Thanks for coming on again.
I'll see you at the window.
All right, and that was Chris Commish Moon talking a little baseball as we head down the home stretch and into the playoffs for the MLB season. And that's going to wrap it up for us here on the Vegas Squares podcast. Again, follow us on Twitter at Vegas Squares, or you can vote. We put up polls at Squares Polls. We put up a bunch of polls every day or a few days, just looking for input for the show. So please head on over to at Squares Polls if you'd like to be a part of the show that way. Spike in the room, appreciate you, buddy, for coming aboard. We'll get the Tonys on here in the next few episodes because this is kind of one of those spots. This is Chris the Commish Moon's bread and butter, home stretch playoff race in baseball. Preseason football is kind of Spike's mantra, but these guys really get going, the Tonys, with NFL and college football. So, without any further ado, we will sign off. Thank you very much for listening, either on the website, vegassquares.com, or at 12 Ounce Sports Radio. So we will catch you on the next episode.